Democrat-controlled Senate will hold a vote on another dead-on-arrival bill. This time, though, it isn't just a messaging bill designed to put on a show for their far left. This is legislation that is actually critical to the stability of our government, our economy, and the livelihood of millions of public servants. For months now, Republicans have made clear, though, we will not split the ticket when it comes to Democrats' reckless tax and spending spree. We will not vote to raise the debt limit just so Democrats can spend another $3.5 trillion and add that to the American people's credit card in a purely partisan exercise. If this was ever a secret, it was the worst kept secret in Washington, D.C. But our Democratic colleagues simply can't resist a chance to virtue signal, even if it wastes valuable floor time here in the Senate. We've seen this before. In fact, Democrats' designed to fail agenda practically dominated the Senate's calendar this summer. There was a bill to exploit the cause of gender pay fairness in order to line the pockets of trial lawyers. There was legislation to overhaul America's election system and hand Democrats a permanent governing majority. The latest version of this bill, which will also fail, will come up for a vote in a matter of days. Senator Schumer has even forecasted votes on other bills that were so unpopular, as it turned out, that they didn't even make it to the Senate floor. There was one that would have eroded Americans' Second Amendment rights, another that would punish schools and hospitals that refused to comply with woke social norms. Now, this isn't an agenda to better the lives of the American people or protect the country from global threats. It's pandering, pure and simple. While pandering to their radical base is the focus of the Democrat-led Senate, there are a number of threats this body should actually address. The most obvious is the need to prevent another government shutdown. And let's not forget the Biden border crisis on our southern border. For the entirety of President Biden's term of office, Democrats have refused to acknowledge any sort of problem at all with our southern border because apparently they don't actually believe in borders or apparently care little about the drugs smuggled into this country that took the lives of 90,000 Americans last year alone. Even as hundreds of thousands of migrants poured across our border every month, Democrats showed no concern or didn't even acknowledge that there was a problem. Then things came to a head. Finally, the news media began to pay attention on Del Rio. Within a matter of days, 30,000 migrants, nearly 30,000, primarily from Haiti, crossed the border and set up camp under an international bridge in Del Rio, Texas. Early statements indicated that the administration would make heavy use of Title 42, which is a public health title designed to protect the American people against the spread of COVID-19. Early statements indicated the administration would make use of that public health title and expedited removal to return these individuals to their home countries. It sounded like a pretty remarkably sensible strategy. But now that the migrant camp has been cleared, we know that is not what happened. Only about 2,000 migrants were returned to Haiti, a small percentage of the nearly 30,000 who crossed into Del Rio. Some 8,000 voluntarily returned to Mexico, but I expect many of those migrants and their families will make another attempt to re-enter the United States. Another 5,000 of that number are currently being processed by the Department of Homeland Security. In a television appearance this weekend, Secretary Mayorkas said 10 to 12,000 migrants, the ones that were huddled under the bridge in Del Rio, Texas, 10 to 12,000 migrants have been released into the United States, untested for COVID-19, unvaccinated, when in fact the Biden administration has said that the public health Title 42 was going to be used to exclude them. Well, those numbers are likely to grow in coming days because, frankly, all the Biden administration was concerned about, apparently, was the bad optics of 30,000 migrants huddled under a border bridge in Del Rio, Texas. What the Biden administration did, as opposed to what they said they were going to do, is an open invitation for more migrants to illegally come to the United States. Individuals who are trying to decide whether to make the dangerous journey to our borders are reading the same headlines and watching the same TV news shows that we are. And many of them are simply calling their relatives in the United States saying, should I still come? And being given the green light because of the failure of the Biden administration to do anything to deter or dissuade or add costs to people illegally entering the United States. In so doing, the Biden administration is sending an unmistakable message to more migrants to come to the United States, because if you do, there's a good chance you'll be released into the American countryside and disappear into that great American heartland. Migrants will ignore what President Biden is saying because they know what his administration is doing, or in this case, not doing, which is not securing the borders. Unless something changes, the Haitian migration and the crisis in Del Rio that fixated the attention of the news media and all America, that unless something changes from a policy perspective, this is going to happen again. We already know that border crossings are at their highest levels in 20 years. Now the administration is apparently opening the door to even more illegal migration. And the smuggling organizations, the organized crime syndicates that profit from charging these migrants thousands of dollars to get them into the country, will continue to get rich because of the administration's unwillingness to enforce our immigration laws. Well, Congress has a duty to take action and address this crisis before it grows even more out of control. Democrats cannot ignore the responsibility to enforce our laws and secure our borders just because it upsets part of their political base. There's a lot of things we need to do in the Senate, and this parade of dead-on-arrival bills does nothing to move us in the right direction. Clearly, our Democratic colleagues are finding their newfound majority. They're finding a lot of trouble using this power to actually govern. They have a wide gulf between the so-called moderates of their party, what they can stomach, and what the progressive left wing demands. They're up against a government funding deadline in just the next few days that could risk a shutdown during what is already tough economic times for many Americans because of the pandemic. And they're trying to use a partisan budgetary process to pass trillions of dollars of more spending, more deficit spending, while also trying to get another $1 trillion infrastructure bill signed into law. To top things off, they fanned the flames of the crisis at our border, struggled to defend an indefensible, disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, and offended America's oldest ally. This is not what governing looks like. There's no spotlight on a party like there is when you hold all the cards, when you control the White House, the House, and the Senate. The American people know who's responsible for the status quo. When the majority party all but refuses to work with the minority party, that spotlight grows even brighter. I hope, but frankly I don't expect, that our Democrats will reevaluate the wisdom of this parade of failed bills and spend a little bit of time working with Republicans on legislation that can actually pass and make a positive difference for our country. Madam President, I yield the floor, and I would note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.